When you're clear about the truth, when you experience the truth, you have no past. You have no past. The only reality you're experiencing when you experience the truth is now. It's always now, right? No matter what time it is, if you're experiencing the truth, it's now, right? No matter where you are, if you're experiencing the truth, it's here. You could go anywhere in the world, it'll still be here, right? And you could be in any time zone, or it could be any time on your watch, right? And it's now. It's always now and it's always here, right? That's what it's like when reality is the experience. Okay? And you have no past. This is one of the things that's important to understand, because the personality can be traumatized because it takes itself to be the body, and the body can be traumatized, right? It takes itself to be the personality takes itself to be a real form, an actual form that can be affected. Things can happen to you, right, as a personality, right? But when you experience the truth, not only are you not a personality, but there is no self. There is no self. Because when you experience the truth, what you're experiencing has no characteristics. How can it be a self? A self would have to have characteristics. It has no characteristics. It's not a male or a female. It has no age. It has no characteristics at all. It has no appearance. It makes no appearance. Now, obviously, if you consider that, right, can you see that this is going to be problematic, right? See, I really want to try and support you in seeing the dilemma, right? Because you're in a dilemma. You're in a dilemma. The dilemma you're in is you take yourself to be something that doesn't exist. That's a dilemma, right? You take yourself to be a physical body when you're not. That's a dilemma, right? But the dilemma is a dilemma because your brain has been completely practiced into the belief that this is true. And so thoughts emanate from a brain that takes it that you are the body and you are the personality. Thoughts emanate from there, right? So if I ask you who you are and you look to see what the thoughts tell you, and that's what you tell me, you just got duped again, right? That's what you have to understand. See, look, if I say you don't exist, right, because you take yourself to be a personality and the personality doesn't exist, right? So now watch, if I say you don't exist, right, and then you say, oh, I get it, I don't exist. Look at what I just said. If I say you don't exist and your voice in your head says, oh, I get it, I don't exist. Not only are you putting the I back in, but the I just said that it gets that it doesn't exist. The I that doesn't exist said that. You get it? Yes. So how are you going to get out of that?
I haven't figured it out yet.
It sounds like your next book.
Yeah, but you can't figure it out.
The Dilemma. That's your next book.
Maybe. But you can't figure it out, because if you figure it out, what's going to figure it out? Figuring things out happens in thinking, doesn't it? Yeah, well, thinking is not going to work with this. You can't think your way out of the dilemma. It'll just produce more craziness, more confusion. You can't think your way out of the dilemma. So if it is the case that even if you get the data, the personality gets the data, I'm telling you as the personality, this is the truth. Now watch, I'm telling you as the personality, this is the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Well, now you're interested, right? Oh, I want to learn more about that. The you that doesn't exist wants to learn more about that. You see it? And the you that doesn't exist will continue to maintain the idea, if I learn enough about this, and if I sit there and relax the body and calm the mind, then I'll get out of the dilemma. No, you won't.
But you tell us to study the teachings.
That's right.
So that is learning about
That's right, learning about it, not being what you're learning
You
about.
said before, you want to get us so frustrated, so we say, I don't care, I give up.
Well, yeah,
Give up on it.
but you see, but even the you that gives up, see?
It's not,
Even the you that gives up is still the one that doesn't exist. It's not real, it doesn't exist, right? But you can't get out of it because your brain has been hypnotized, right? And so anything that I say to you, anything that you say back to me is going to come from the one that doesn't exist. So what do you do about that? Yeah? See, if I ask you who you are, and you keep depending on the thoughts that appear in your head to answer the question, right? All you're doing is proving that you can't get out of it. That's what you're doing when you answer that way. You're proving that you can't get out of it. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to answer if I don't answer based on the thoughts that appear in my head, right? You see? What am I supposed to do? The one that doesn't exist is talking here. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to get out of this? If you ask me who I am, how am I going to answer the question unless I answer with the thoughts that occur in my mind?
Yeah, even the prophets and the gurus speak in the first person.
That's right. Why? Because they can't get out of it. The prophets and the gurus and the masters and the teachers are in the same boat that you're in. They have to show up as a separate self, and they have to be a personality, because this is the game of life. This is the time-space world in which these things appear that way, right? So then what's the key here? What's the key here? What's the key here? Well, there are a couple of things that are the key here. One is that you can never experience the truth as a thought. It's impossible to experience the truth as a thought, right? That's why when we practice meditation, what are we doing? We're practicing moving our attention away from thinking. Because as long as your attention is on thinking, you cannot experience reality. You can only experience the thought process, and that's not reality. It's as simple as that. Simple as that, right? So you're not going to get out of it, right? And you're not going to get out of identifying with it. You're not going to get out of identifying with the body or the mind, right? In terms of the way that you operate in the world. You're not going to get out of it in terms of the way you operate in the world. Look at that. How could you get out of it? How could you get out of it? If you have to get out of being identified as a personality in the body in order to be free and enjoy what freedom has to offer, right? How would you be without a body and without a personality? If that's the solution, right, what kind of solution is that? What would you be without a body and a personality? How would you function without a body and a personality? It's not going to happen. It's not going to, I mean, I guess it's possible if you want to be catatonic and go live in a locked ward, but you can't function in the world that way. You have to follow the rules. The rules are, I'm separate from you, we're living in time and space. They're the rules. They're the rules, right? So then what, right? The then what is two things about the then what. One is, it's not that you're going to stop thinking, and it's not that you're going to stop using thinking as a way of functioning in the world. That's never going to stop. And it's never going to be the case that you don't take yourself to be a body, because that's your piece on the board. You can't play this game without the piece on the board, okay? So those things aren't going to happen. But you can pay attention to what's not real with the understanding that it's not real. And if you pay attention to what's not real with the understanding that it's not real, right, then even though thinking is happening, you don't refer to that as the truth. So if I ask you who you are and you want to answer the question correctly, you don't refer to what you think when you answer the question. Follow me? You don't refer to what you think. If you refer to what you think, all you're doing is proving that you can't get out of it, right? So what do you do? If you don't answer the question by referring to what you think, what do you refer to answer the question? What is there? There's thinking, there's two things present all the time, right? The thinking activity, or the mental state, and the emotional state that plays all the time in the mind, right? That's happening all the time. What's the other thing that's present all the time?
The awareness.
Yeah, you could call it your awareness, or you could call it your existence. Same thing. You are existence. That's what you are. You are life. You are life. And that life that you are is not personal. It's not personal. So if you answer the question, who am I? And instead of answering it by the thought activity, you answer it by the experience of your existence, then you can get it correct. The only problem with that is no matter what you say, it won't be true because that's just a concept. But you can experience it. You can experience, in fact, you are experiencing it all the time. You're experiencing it all the time. So then what's getting you stuck? What's having you stuck? What's having you be stuck, right? Because as in the identity of a personality, how do you approach the experience of the reality of what you are? From the identity as a personality, right? In other words, the one you're experiencing right now, right? From the identity of a personality, how do you experience the truth of what you are?
Say that again.
From the identity of the personality, right? You hear the teaching, right? The teaching says the truth is you are awareness itself, right? So having heard that as a personality, right? Then what's your plan? What do you take yourself to be from the place that you start, right? From the place that you start the process? You hear the truth, right? You as a personality hears the truth. You want this truth to be your truth so you can experience the truth so set you free. You want to be happy and peaceful. You want that, don't you? All right, where are you starting from? Okay, so everything that all of you just said equals that what you have to do is change. Yes?
Yes.
Right? No matter how whatever you come up with, it's going to be a change, right? Something has to change, right? That's the barrier. That's the barrier. That's the barrier. And what makes it worse is you can't stop trying to become what you are. You can't stop. Try stopping. You can't. Because the place you're starting from, right? The place you're starting from, you have that the place you're starting from isn't it. Therefore, something has to be different, right? But it's not that where you're starting from isn't it. It's that where you're starting from is being mistakenly identified as a personality. You can't stop trying to be what you already are. You can't. You can't, because what you take yourself to be has it that that's not it. You get this? What you take yourself to be has it that that's not it. And if that's not it, something has to change. Simple as that, right? But that's the mistake. See how easy it is to sucker you? All I have to do is ask you what it's going to take, right? And you go right back to change. You can't do it any other way. You go right back to change, right? You can't get out of that. You cannot get out of that. It's like Paul Hederman says, you can't outdraw your ego. You can't outdraw you can't turn your head fast enough to catch it. You can't.
See, the word conscious also means thought, like thinking. If you're conscious of something.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything.
In the English language, the word conscious.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. So what? You're conscious of what? You're conscious of what you're not. So is there a way out? The teachers say that there is, right? The masters say that there is. You can't do anything to get there, but you can't stop trying to do things to get there. You see the problem?
Yeah.
You can't do anything to get there, but at the same time, you can't stop doing things to try and get there.
And you're already there.
Yeah, you're already there, but that's just the concept, right? That's the carrot, that you're already there. That's the carrot that the personality feels motivated to try and get there. But you can't get there. So then what's the deal? I mean, how do you deal with this? Ramana Maharshi, one of the teachers who said that it's possible to realize the truth, right? He said that...
As a concept?
No, as an experience. To be the experience of the truth. Not to have an experience, to be the experience of the truth. He said that this is possible. And he said that what the teaching says is you will experience the greatest glory when you experience your own non-existence. You will experience the greatest glory in your life when you experience your non-existence. This is interesting because isn't your non-existence the thing you fear the most?
But that's,
Because we associate with
that's,
that.
that's that temporary,
Well, don't you consider death to be your non-existence?
That's what I'm saying, that's what we associate non-existence
That's right.
with death.
That's right. And he said the greatest glory you will ever experience will be when you experience your non-existence. But your non-existence to you is your death. That's the thing you'll do anything to avoid. You'll do anything to avoid the experience that is the experience that will be the most glorious experience you will have in your life. You'll do anything to avoid it because you consider that to be your death. You see the problem? That's not a temporary epiphany. Not only is it not a temporary epiphany, but you're experiencing it all the time. You've always been experiencing it, right? You've always been experiencing it all the time. You've always been experiencing it. How are you going to get out of something you've never been in? How are you going to get out of something you've never been in that you believe that you've been in more than you believe anything else in the world? How are you going to get out of something you've never been in that you believe you're in more than anything else in the world? You see the dilemma? Man, the answer is so simple. The answer is so simple, it's mind-boggling, right? What it boils down to is very practical and very simple, right? Where does the personality that isn't real get generated? Thinking, right? Gets generated in the thought process, doesn't it? I think, therefore I am. Gets generated in the thought process.
Our memories of past life.
That's just more evidence, isn't
Yeah.
it? That you're real.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can you show me those experiences? Oh, I'm sorry.
they don't exist.
So the reality of it is that in your mind is always, the voice in your head is always playing the role of you as a personality, right? And you've been entrained to pay attention to that, right? You have been, when you were a baby, you were told, pay attention to that, that's you, right? And not only is that you, but you want to develop your ability to think because that'll make you powerful. Isn't that true? Yeah. So you're learning all the things that aren't true to be true. And then you're practicing those things, right? But the reality of it is, all you have to do to be free from the activity of the mind is pay attention to the mind as a mind instead of a reality. That's all. That's all. And if you pay attention to the mind as a mind instead of reality, you don't use it as a reference to know things because it can't know anything. All the thoughts are always about things, aren't they? They're about things. They're not the thing itself. It's about things. A professional athlete is training themselves not to think. Crazy, isn't it? You would think it would be the other way, right? That they would have to be able to think on their feet, you see? To think on their feet. No. If you talk to a professional athlete, when they're in the game and they're playing at the highest level, right? Why do you think at the end of the game that they always say, thank God? It's not just because they're very religious, it's because they've experienced being God when they were playing the game. They experience being God when they're playing the game because when they're not thinking and they're in the activity of the game, right? Then they can respond without thought to what's happening. Faster than thinking. If you're driving a race car 230 miles an hour and you think you're dead, you've got to train yourself to drive the car and not think, to just be there with the road. That's how you have to live. So what does this boil down to? What it boils down to is what I call the informal practice. What's the informal practice? Resting as awareness for brief moments. And when you rest as awareness for a brief moment, are you thinking? No. That's all you're doing for a brief moment. And you don't have to do it formally like you have to do in formal meditation where that's the only thing you're doing. In formal meditation, that's the only thing you're doing, so it's a practice of experiencing not thinking. That's a formal practice of experiencing not thinking. But if you want to experience the freedom that's available when you're experiencing the reality, right, then as you're in your life doing things, you have to practice not thinking. If you're not paying attention to anything, it's not there, right? It's not there because you're not giving it your attention, right? So you have to the practice of presence, the practice of mindfulness, the practice of presence is the practice of being present without thought. Because if you're there with thought, you're not present, you're busy thinking. And what are you missing when you're not present and you're busy thinking?
What's the reality?
What's happening now?
Yeah, which is your life. You're missing your life. If you don't know how to be present to the world and be present to what's happening without thinking, you're missing your life. Now, since you can't not think, right? When I say not thinking, I don't mean the absence of the voice in your head. That's not what I mean by not thinking. A lot of people think that not thinking means that the voice in your head doesn't exist. But you can't live your life in an everyday way like that, can you? You have to think to be in space and time and function, right?
Your interface with the world.
That's right. To interface with the world, you have to think. So it's not going to work to think that the absence of thinking is going to be the solution to the situation. That's not going to happen. What will happen if you practice is to pay attention to thinking, knowing that the thinking is thinking. Do you understand? If you know that the thinking is thinking and not the truth, the transcendence of thinking is to look through it, not beyond it. Because if you look through it, what's there behind the thinking is the reality of what you are all the time. But thinking is put in front of it. Thinking is put in front of it. But even during the thought, because I'm suggesting that you can be what you are all the time, not just occasionally or not just when you go through that aspect of the practice that you're free from thinking. I'm saying while you're thinking, you can be free from thinking. That's real freedom. While you're thinking, you can be free from thinking because you're recognizing it as thinking, and the recognition of it as thinking is not me thinking. When you look at thinking, you're seeing thinking is not you thinking, you're seeing it as a phenomena that's occurring in your mind. No, you can distinguish between working thoughts, and there's the working thoughts are useful thinking, the rest of it's useless thinking, all thinking. But if you're paying attention to thinking and know that thinking is thinking and not being, by seeing it that way, you see through it to the reality of what you are. That's the practice, right there. Not to not think, not to not act, right? But to be aware in such a way that you see through that to the truth of what you are. That's always there. And you don't have to not think to be what you are. You always are what you are, whether you're thinking or not. Right? So you can experience being what you already are while you're thinking, because not only do you know you are what you are, whether you're thinking or not, but if you're paying attention the right way, right, you see right through the thinking to the existence of the awareness. And you recognize that that's the reality of what you are, that's the true nature. And even the thinking is that true nature. There is nothing but that true nature. Even the thinking is that true nature. The thinking is that true nature. Thinking is consciousness manifesting as thought. That's all. It's just taking a particular form given by your conditioning, which is necessary for you to be in the world and function, isn't it? So you're not trying to get rid of that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when you take that to be the source that it's a problem. It's when you take that to be what you are that it's a problem. But you don't have to get out of something you're not in. See, when you take it as a personality that I have to change in order to experience the truth, right? You're assuming you're in the personality, aren't you? But you're not. You never were. It's an illusion. Why do you have to get out of something you're not in? That's right, it's not real. But if you're paying attention to it from a real place, seeing it as not real, it doesn't have an effect on you. Yeah, so consciousness is temporarily taking the form of thought and temporarily individualized itself so we can do this together. You see what I'm saying? If that wasn't the case, the game would be over. We couldn't do this. How would it work? How would it work if everybody was the same thing all the time? The game would be over. You can enjoy the game when you know it's a game and it's not real. That's what makes sports work, doesn't it? If that wasn't the case, people would never play sports. It would be too intense. You know what I mean? If you were playing football and you know the other team dies, nobody would play. Right?